Hi, Johanna. Welcome to Agile Adapt. I just wanted to welcome you, renowned author and expert in managing product development. And I wanted to take the opportunity to catch up with you today to talk about your latest series of articles with regard to the kind of daunting term unemployed agilists, and as well as discussing your new book on Project Lifecycles. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You recently wrote a series of articles about unemployed agilists. The series discusses why managers don't perceive the value of agile coaches and scrum masters. From my view, it looks like I feel sometimes there's some kind of global movement, whether it's indirect or informally known or something in the subconscious, but it just seems to be this big movement now about moving away from people who coaching people in software development and other agile teams and more into leading, managing, and doing. Can you tell us more about that from your perspective?
So, I mean, part of it was I saw all of these, a bunch of my colleagues getting laid off. And my business as a consultant, I do almost no coaching right now. And I have not for a couple of years. I'm still consulting. I still help senior leaders as a trusted advisor. I'm doing all the work that focuses on their bottom line. How
Mm,
can I help them be more effective? How can I help them make more money? I mean, all of the really down and dirty stuff that I have done all along. But coaching, I have not had a coaching engagement for a couple of years. And at first I thought, oh, maybe it's me. I realized it's not just me, it's the entire industry that and I have a theory about this. I have a theory. My theory is that when life coaches got into the agile industry, they destroyed the idea of coaching because life coaches life coaching is not suitable for work, right? The answer is not all of inside of me. I had I had a life coach. I was having trouble at work and not really understanding how to manage the project portfolio because my boss, the VP, was not. And he wanted me to use a tool. I only knew about yellow stickies to figure out which projects and features we were going to do when. I thought it was a problem with me. No, yellow stickies is still a very effective way to manage the sequencing of work, right? So that's a different problem. But he said to me, it's your job to figure it out. And since you don't know, I'm going to give you a coach. I don't know where he got this woman. But I said to her, here's my problem. I don't know how to do this. Is there a tool you can recommend? And she said, the answers are all inside of you. I said, no, actually, the answers are outside of me. I really need help. I'm looking for expertise, and you supposedly have this expertise. She said, oh no, I'm a coach. I don't have expertise. I'm thinking, why am I talking to this person? And that's when she said, the answers are all inside of you. And I said, let me tell you all the books I've read. Let me tell you the people I've talked to. And I went through 5 minutes of stuff. And I said, so tell me, tell me what I need to do to make this work. She said, the answers are all inside of you. I said, okay, here's the answer. You're fired.
yeah.
I mean, that's how long was I going to stay talking to this person who clearly had no idea of the challenges I was trying to fix,
Mm,
right? Um, we 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 all work to solve problems, and coaching for many agile teams is about surfacing the problems. What are all the impediments, and then solving them. But if you don't know enough about agile approaches to understand that Scrum is a subset of Lean, and you don't know where the new product development game came from, right? Which is the origin of Scrum. And if you don't know anything about Kanban or the flow metrics, you cannot be effective at doing your work. And so that's, I got a little hot under the collar and wrote 4 blog posts. They're all blog.
It sounds like that experience, that person was hiding behind the term Zen to, deflect because they didn't actually have any answers for you. And you can see right through it, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And if she had said, I don't know, and if she had actually just said, I don't know. And then I would have asked, do you know where I could look? And if she'd also said, I don't know, we would have shortcutted that conversation much faster. And I would not have been, I mean, this is now, oh my God, 35 years later, and I'm still telling that story. So I think it's really important that we recognize when we don't know, which is actually a mark of leadership. And if we don't know where to find the information, then we also need to do something about that. Right. But though I don't know everything. I have a lot of expertise in managing product development, but there are still plenty of things I don't know. But I know how to find out. And that's part of the value I bring to
Mm.
my clients. And I think too many coaches and scrum masters don't know how to find out.
Do you think if there's this if this movement is looking at less coaching, do you think it's they're looking for leaders to be a bit more hands-on? What do you think drives this movement from less agile coaching to more of the practitioners and people leading something towards vision and mission and that kind of thing? Or is it
Yeah.
the same one and the same?
I think that there's another piece of this, which is if managers want a specific outcome, then the manager actually has to do the coaching. And so, for a way too long, in fact, I think many of the certifications, I think there are several leadership certifications, but I don't know what's in them. But I think it's most important that managers understand why agile approaches work,
Mm.
right? Why, and they understand that they want agility. Right, almost every manager I knows wants agility, but there are many ways to skin that cat. You don't have to use Scrum. You don't have to use a Scrum Master or a coach. And in fact, if the managers have the lean insights, they might be the most effective coach because they know first the outcome that they want, and secondly, how to make a team deliver that outcome. And I don't mean make a team deliver it, but to create the environment, the culture that the team can deliver it in.
You mentioned earlier with regard to leaders, um, and you know your articles are talking about managers don't change the culture, but then they won't be able to reap all the benefits of agility. This is where agile professionals could step in.
So I think that the more everybody understands about agility and what managers really want. And I talked in these blog posts about managers want more revenue and they want to decrease expenses, right? More profit, fewer expenses, greater net revenue. That's the very simple approach of what managers want. And
Mm.
they get that as an outcome of providing goods and services that customers want to buy, right? So all of this is a system. And I think that the more we have deep agile expertise and the more we apply that expertise and our expertise about the product and how the product serves or does not serve the potential customers, now we have a reinforcing feedback loop that works. Right? We have managers who want agility. They create the culture using often the flow metrics, and then the flow metrics help the team understand, is our cycle time fast enough, or are we being delayed by all these delays in the system? And if we understand the outcome, does that outcome stay put through the entire project, or does it change? Does it need to change? Right? Not everybody has a different um kind of sweet spot for how often they want to change their products and services, and how often the customers will take a new version of the product or the service. So, and you can modify your customers' desires depending on where they are in the chasm. But most of us have a reasonable cadence of delivery that serves almost everybody's needs. And if we optimize for that cadence of delivery, now we are in a much better place. But that's all part of the system.
It's interesting. This is what leads me to like these roles like Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. And did read in the 4 articles that you wrote that some people during this bleak time might consider them as overheads and not R&D roles, right? Um, can you tell me about what you mean by that? And for example, you mentioned staff roles and line jobs.
Yeah, so a line job is something, think of it as hands-on somehow
Mm,
for the product, either strategic decisions or tactical decisions or all those decisions in between. So most of the time, project managers, um, all of those people, aside from the development team, are part of a line role. HR, finance, staff jobs. No, we need them. Well, we need the outcomes of those people. And there are many good reasons to keep finance and HR in the organization.
yeah.
I'm not saying we should get rid of them, but if a manager cannot tell the value of a scrum master or a coach, that's not a good sign.
Mm.
And while it's entirely possible that many facilitative roles do help with, and I know that they do help with delivering product, that's not always sufficient for um, really showing your value. So if you cannot point to product expertise in some way, shape, or form, you probably don't have enough value in the organization for the manager to think, oh, that's clearly a staff job, because that person cannot help us make any product-based decisions. Right? It's that product-based decision that really matters.
This is an interesting point and moment because I think for a lot of agile coaches and scrum masters to pivot out of the shadows and, you know, become part of, get into the light and add their value, what would your advice be? For me, like I talked about it before in previous podcasts and stuff about getting above the waterline, working just outside of the team, but also engaging with, more of the leadership, the HR roles, and showing the value that the team that they help drive the team towards, and probably being the bridge between business and development. You can, speak that language, right, and show the worth. Um, what are your comments on that?
So I think it's really important to say, where do I fit in the product areas, right? Am I really down and dirty into the architecture, how this product gets put together? And I think of that as bottom up, um, solution space, domain expertise. Or am I the kind of person who understands these customers don't want that. They want this, right? We are solving the wrong problem for them right now. Look, if you don't have to solve the wrong problems, you have a lot more time to solve the right problems. So I think of that as problem space domain expertise. And I think that when we focus on, and some people, God, there are always these brilliant people that move from the bottom to the top and back again. I know of about a half a dozen of them. I am not one of them. I I can in my role as a consultant, I more often come at this from the problem space. And then if people are gentle with me and they explain to me how will everything work, then I have enough expertise in how systems work that I can come at it from the solution space. But I because I'm not involved with teams for a long period of time, I almost always start with the problem space. And a lot of managers start with the problem space.
Mm.
They need to understand enough about the tools and technology, but managers need to be thinking about the strategic decisions of which problems do we solve, for whom, and when. Those are all strategy decisions. I really hope that only the CTO is involved in which architecture is this? Is this microservices or nanoservices or whatever? Right. I don't even know all the names of all of them. So I think it's really important to say where is our product based expertise.
In your articles as well, you mentioned something about agile productivity, for example, by increasing your throughput, you reduce WIP and reduce cycle times. How effective is that for people working in projects, no matter if it's agile or other, or waterfalls?
Oh, I think that the flow metrics really matter for every single project because the flow metrics, especially WIP and cycle time, really tell you almost everything you need to know about late feedback loops. So there's nothing wrong with a waterfall if you don't need a lot of innovation, and if it's a relatively short project. I don't even know of a 3-month project I could run as a waterfall, but there might be some. But
Mm.
I have never seen a 6-month waterfall project work. That's because very close to the end of the waterfall, with the end of the project, that's when something happens, right? Something happens in capital letters, and you need feedback to go all the way to the front of the project, where you change the architecture and you change the design. You might even change the requirements because now you know more because of the late feedback loop. So I really like to think about cycle time as a way to say, what is our first opportunity to demo? And what is our first opportunity to learn something? And the later we push the learning, the more likely we will be disappointed.
How so? Because of that
Oh,
cycle.
yeah, that's the rest of the circle, right? So if we learn something late, now we say, now what do we do? Do we freak out? Can we ship anything at all? And the problem with a waterfall is you most likely not ship anything at all, right? That everything is in a state of flux, or you have included all of the architecture for the kitchen sink. Right, but you only have the faucet.
Yeah,
And so you
that's
have a
true. Yeah.
bloated product that does not do anything. And so if you ship it to your customers and you say, you can turn on the water, and they say, but we want to do the dishes, this this is this is not a useful product. People stop giving you money.
Mm.
And that means you get lower net revenue. That's a bad thing for managers, right? It's all about, we can always bring this back to the number of customers we have and the revenue we get from them. So if we don't have a useful product because we have spent way too long in the project without enough delivering, then now we have a problem.
Thank you. And finally, with regard to these articles, my key takeaway from your series is that, like, no matter what your domain, your specialty, if agilists can increase their skill set and knowledge, subject matter, expertise, whether it's in agile or the specific product, they'll be better prepared for an uncertain future, right? So I sometimes call this an opportunity to flex your muscles. Um, what are a couple of key messages you wanted to tell us from this, like in
Um,
in
so
reflective?
so I think it's really important not to say I need to do agile because it's the next big thing,
Mm,
right? I talked about the hype cycle in the Gartner hype cycle in these posts. But what I do think is important, if we say to ourselves, what is what is the next piece of expertise I want to get? And how does that relate to the bottom line? And that's why if you link your skills to cycle time, not personal cycle time, right? The fact that you can learn something is interesting but not relevant to the product development. How can what you learn help the team deliver faster and better, right? That's where we can take everything we know about agility and say, maybe I need to help the team learn how to mob or swarm or pair. So we reduce the team cycle time.
mm.
That allows us to finish the project faster and release the full product so that the customers will buy. What if I have to learn about TDD, right? Because that's a very effective way of designing the product. That very, I should say, too few teams in my experience use TDD or BDD. Any of those thinking about examples or tests or behaviors as a way to drive their development, because that changes our thinking about the problems and the domain, right? That links back to problem space expertise and domain space expertise and changes how we create the product.
Mm.
So the more we can use all of the agile tools, I'm not sure if I think about it as a tool, but all the aspects of agility and link them to a better outcome for the customers. Often that better outcome is not just a better product, but a faster cycle of product development.
I really like that. I've had experiences recently. It's like, oh, we're doing some process mapping, and they're like, well, if we need to get the tester in here, and it's just like, why are you talking about that? Let's just get in a room, like three people doing the what needs to get done. Look at the ticket, talk to the board, come up with a plan. It's not that hard. And spending that time mapping out a process to discuss that is madness in a lot of ways. Just get them in the room and talk, and then the process will come out of that if you need to do one.
Right, right.
Um, this leads me to your new book, Project Lifecycles. What inspired you to write this book?
So um, I keep seeing way too much fake agility and
Mm,
not nearly enough real agility. And when I think about fake agility, it's all the, oh, we need a stand up. Oh, we need relative estimation. No, 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 no. Stop with the relative estimation already. Use cycle time because it's your data and you have ways to understand and use that data to fix your process, right? So cycle time is great, relative estimation is not. Oh, if I never have to go to another stand-up, especially where stand-ups focus on the individual, which is all about resource efficiency, as opposed to flow, right? Thinking in flow, which is flow efficiency. If agility is a part of lean thinking, why would we not use one of the best tools for lean thinking, which is thinking as a whole of the team, and we're always watching the work, not the people, right? All of this, this is where the people who have a lot of certifications, but not a lot of agile knowledge, really do a great disservice to agility in general. So I wrote the book because I'm tired of people saying we want our agile when what they mean is we want to take a bunch of time, figure out a bunch of stuff up front. Okay, be honest about that. I would not do that, but even I, when I write my books, I spend a little bit of time thinking about the user journey, right? Who is my user? What does their journey have to be? Now, a little tip for all you book writers out there, I change the user journey as I write because I learn something new as I go. Um, Maybe you don't have to for your product, that's fine. But then how many iterations do I use as prototypes before I release an increment of value?
Mm,
Every product is different. So if you need a totally prototypical approach, I explain about the spiral model and the other evolutionary prototyping iterative life cycle in this book. And then all the incremental life cycles, which I just love. Because yeah, maybe you need some work up front, and then you move into maybe hopefully not more than a month long in iterations where you deliver incremental value at least as often at the end of that iteration, right? So at least as often as once a month. And then the real agile approaches. So agility is not really an agile approach requires a culture change,
mm.
which is why all the agile transformations don't work, right? Unless you're willing to transform culture, and that requires management to not just buy into, but actively change the culture with what they reward, how people treat each other, and what we can discuss. You can never get an agile culture. So don't start with an agile transformation. No, I don't know anybody who wants that, but I do know
It
how to
sounds
build a
painful.
yeah, I do know how to build agility into every single project. And that's what managers want, right? Managers, I don't, I don't know of a single manager who cares about Agile or Scrum or Kanban or any of that. Managers want agility so they can recognize revenue earlier.
Yeah. I really like your idea about assessing risk and culture from the book. Can they help lead like designing your project lifecycle around that? Can you please tell us what you meant by that? What does that process look like?
So the process of the agile team culture
I think
or
for
they
me, I'm a bit of a I like the project planning. I'm a bit of a project planning geek, but you're talking about assessing risk and culture and how that can lead to designing your project lifecycle, the project lifecycle specifically.
okay. So if you work, um, a number of my dear friends work for banks
Yeah,
and almost any kind of a regulated industry is not going to have a very, well, let's just say by definition, they tend to be risk averse, right? Regulated industries have to deal with auditors, they have to deal with all kinds of other interesting people who might not be exactly the kinds of people that who will take risks at the drop of a hat, right? So if you don't have a very risk tolerant culture, why would you create a lot of risks? Why not? Why not figure out a way to manage the risks in that culture? So risk averse cultures never want to fail fast.
no,
They want to prove, right? They want to prove what they have learned. So that actually would lead me to say they need more of an agile approach, but not to release interim product to customers, but to release interim product internally. Right? The more they release internally, the more they can assess the various risks. That's that's a fabulous way to use agility in a risk-averse culture. Don't say, you have to ship to your customers every 2 weeks. Why would you do that? Why would you make everybody crazy, including yourself? So this is why I think it's really important to say, how much agility does the culture allow you? And then work inside of those parameters. Don't say, well, we have to change the culture. I don't know how to do that.
Especially with banking, with risk and compliance, and regulatory stuff, it could be an opportunity to experiment within those boundaries, right? To try something
Oh
new
yeah.
with a small team and pilot it, or proof of concept, that whatever you want to call that, a spike.
Well, and I think it's really important to say, how do we what do our managers want?
Mm,
And they probably want some form of agility because they want it for capitalization or understanding how to make more sense of their R&D budget. I mean, there's all kinds of things, all, all related to the profit and loss statement. But I think it's really important to say, how do we how do we help them recognize what we can do with and for them, as opposed to Scrum says,
mm.
or Kanban says, or Safe says. Right. None of that makes any sense to me.
By being risk focused, right? I feel like you can have extra levers for your project to decide how and when you can iterate over features and when to deliver value. Um, that's what you describe as real agility. Can you please explain what that looks like in your experience?
Sure. Well, let me back up just a little bit and talk about the difference between project risks and product risks and organizational risks. So, I have this notion of the project pyramid where the inside the pyramid is a triangle of the number of defects, the number of features, and the date. Everything the team has total control over. And then the outside of the triangle, I should say the outside of the pyramid. This is 6 sides, so I don't know else to explain it. There are plenty of pictures on my blog. But the outside is all the cost of the project, the people and the capabilities, and the environment. Now, if you have a very heavy control environment, the team can do less, right? Because the team is not a self-organizing, or at least a self-directing team. So that's why the project pyramid is one of those project-based risk things. And I have suggestions about how you manage that. Now, and it waterfall approach thinks it manages costs. It doesn't really manage any of them. An iterative approach manages feature-based risks. So if you're not sure, do we need this feature or that feature? I often think of this as the eye doctor. Is this A or B, right? One or two, A or B, C or D, all that stuff, right? So if you think about what you do when you go to the eye doctor, right? They give you alternatives and say which one is better now or later. Okay, that's an iterative way to think about the risks to your product. Now, a lot of the teams I work with have mostly date-based risks. If they don't, they need to have enough features, but the date, everyone says the date is really king. Fine, it might or might not be. But in that case, you need to develop incrementally and show progress with finished pieces of work. And that's why agile approaches are so really wonderful, because if you iterate over features in a relatively short period of time and release increments of value, you get not quite the most, the you can get a lot of the best of all possible worlds, right? I would use single piece flow instead, but that's fine. So that's why it really matters about your project risks. Now, there are product-based risks also. And if you have a product that needs a lot of innovation, you're not even sure you're doing the eye test. You might be doing a hearing test, right? That means you need to iterate and recurse over everything you do and test with your customers. I don't know of many products like that. And then we have maybe, I was trying to think of a good example of a project that required no innovation, and maybe the 14th port to from one hardware set to another. Maybe that has no innovation. I'm not so sure. That's a different problem. But there's at least much less innovation. The problem is most of us work in the messy middle,
Yeah.
where sometimes we need innovation, sometimes we don't. We can go for months without needing some, and yet then we do. So we need to figure out, when do we iterate over feature sets versus when do we, quote, just deliver. And all of that is in the context of how often does the senior leadership want to change the strategy. Now, you might say that only in the very high innovation products does leadership need to change their strategy. But that's not my experience. My experience is that, for example, I'll use Google because they're not currently a client of mine. Google has one product. They sell ads. They don't have any other products. Google really needs to figure out how to innovate on something other than ads. They desperately need more products. Now, there's the cloud storage and the cloud services and all that stuff. Maybe that's the right thing. I don't know. But they are, and if you think about them as opposed to Apple or Amazon. Amazon has all kinds of businesses, all kinds of income streams. Google has one, ads. Apple has all kinds of income streams. Google has one, ads. If I worked at Google and I was not working on some kind of an innovative product, I might be nudging them to make faster decisions at the portfolio level, to figure out what they need to do now for the next couple of decades, right? I think this is really a problem. Now, with my luck, you'll release this podcast, and then Google will make some kind of an announcement, and I'll sound like an idiot. I can live with the risk, right? They're just an example, and your company might have a different example. But I did work with a payroll company years and years ago who had one kind of payroll. And now think about who needs payroll, at least in the United States. Well, small companies, people who want to do it all online, people who need their taxes and all kinds of other stuff. I have changed payroll companies for my small business, I think 3 or 4 times, right? In the 30 years I've been in business. Now, you might not think that's such a big deal, but every single time I've spent less money and gotten more features. That's the kind of innovation that I expect from all of my services, right? All of my products and services. I expect less expense to run and more features. And that's what we all expect for everything. I believe that original payroll company is now out of business because they took, well, they realized they needed more innovation in this space, and they knew when they wanted different customers. They never released a product in time to acquire new customers. So customer acquisition at the portfolio level really matters. So that's why all three of these risks combine to say what kind of which approach because every life cycle is just a model, and
Yeah.
you can change it at will, you can combine them, it does not matter. Right? Which kind of approach makes the most sense for me where I am right now?
What's your advice to, and I think a lot of it's got to do with the way society's changed post-COVID. Um, what's your advice to people who are a little bit, maybe it's a safety net, but following a model to a fault, like so, religiously down, and that cookie cutter approach. For me, I feel like you kind of, I like your idea about mix and matching and being pragmatic about it. Pragmatic manager. What's your advice to people who are quite like they don't want to let go of those guardrails, and try something new? Because I feel like it's for me, if you don't step into the danger zone of you know getting stepping out of your comfort zone, you're kind of just becoming you know a worse version of yourself because you're not changing and moving forward.
So I am a huge, huge fan of adaptability
Mm,
in humans, in your approach, in products, in how you do everything in the organization. I believe that if we think about agility as a qualitative measure of adaptability, I think that that will serve us well. And I would ask those people who really want to stay I will call it stuck, which is not a very nice word um, for those people. In the modern management books, I call them conservatives,
mm,
as in conservators, conserving the status quo. Um, I mean, I'm not crazy, uh, highly adaptable, ready to do anything at any time kind of person, although I'm kind of close. But I think it's really worthwhile asking yourself, if I've been doing this for 10 years, am I am I really satisfied with these results? Or would I might I get better results if I started to do a little bit of change every single day? So I will give you one example from my life. My after I had my second child, my doctor said to me, "You must lose all this weight." I said, "Well, I lost all the weight with the first child. I just was lumpy in ways I had never been before." She said, "Yeah, but now you're lumpier." Okay, fine. So she said, "The best way to do this is with a low-fat diet." Now, we know now that was very bad advice, but she was my doctor and I took it. I had the mindset of a low fat diet. I was um deliberate. I really cut out all the fat. I was starving and hangry all the time. And finally, 12 years and another 40 pounds later, I said, I'm not doing this low fat diet anymore because all I do is gain weight and I'm nasty and hungry and angry all the time. I'm going back to eating fat. And she said, don't do it. I said, I'm going to. And then I read books about low carb and keto. Well, keto wasn't a thing then. And I realized low carb was the answer for me. I had the mindset of losing weight, but I had to change my behaviors. And if we apply this thinking to agility, one of the big things about every agile approach is either inspect and adapt or reflect and refine. How will we use double loop learning to see what is working and what is not working? And when I applied that thinking to my diet, I lost all those 40 pounds, plus a few more, because, lumpy over here. So I think it's really important to say, how do we apply the principles of agility? In fact, if you look at the manifesto, the only practice in the manifesto is the retrospective.
mm.
That's how important it is. And I will say, I don't know of any circumstance where we do not want to learn from our previous work. And the only question then is, how fast do we want to learn from that work? Now, if you don't know what to do, because you have a coach like mine who said the answers are all inside of you, yeah, that's a different problem. Now it's time to read. Read your book, read my books, find other people in your community whom you can learn from, all that other good stuff. But I think that if we can figure out as humans how often we need to change to really make our best lives and our best work, I think that's what we're put on the earth to do.
That's lovely. Johanna, it's always been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I just want to thank you so much for your time today and compliment you on your really easy and friendly communication style. It's not only in you as a person talking, you're very personable, but also it reflects in your writing. And I really want to commend you for that. Where can listeners and viewers of this podcast read more of your material?
So start with everything at jrothman.com, JROTHMAN.com. And yes, I got a domain name when it was totally fine to have your first initial and your last name. That shows you how old my domain is. And I have all my books are there, my blogs are there, everything is there. I have a YouTube channel also. Um, I hope that people link with me on LinkedIn. I got the Pragmatic Manager email newsletter. Yeah, everything is there. And thank you. I have really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Johanna. Take care.